The new album is about the Knights Templar, who are actually a military order sanctioned by the church. And every song on the album is about how vile humanity, the church, and Christianity really is, and how they just tried to indoctrinate anybody that wasn't Christian into their way of thinking.
Headbangers. Hi, welcome back to the Headbangers podcast. I'm joined with Nathan. Here today is Dean from the Infernal Sea. How are you doing? How's the last year been for you?
Yeah, I'm good, guys. It's been a very different year, shall we say. Obviously with this whole series of lockdowns and not being able to go anywhere and do anything and promote an album has been very strange. But
yeah,
as everyone can contest to this, I think, all over the place.
Absolutely. One thing I want to jump straight in with you guys is just obviously I can't ignore the amazing costumes that you guys use. Could you tell us just the attention to detail with it, and how does it come to be? How do you decide on the costumes, and how important and significant it is to your live performance?
So when we first started, probably around about 10 years ago, we always said that we wanted to kind of work on the stage aesthetic, and we started off differently to how we look now, but I think it's just a natural progression of how we wanted to look from the start, but we just slowly worked our way up to it.
Yeah.
We'd pretty much always donned the plague masks, and they've just got grimmer and grimmer over time. And basically we got these custom masks made because, we were singing about the Black Death during the Great Mortality when we recorded that.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of capture that visceral element of the music in our appearance, and we just felt that donning robes and making ourselves sort of mysterious, with these really brutal, horrible masks, and me donning the sigil on my mask, it just kind of really added to the intensity of the live show. And that's really important to us because our music is really intense, and we wanted the people watching us to really sort of take it all in and just be immersed into the whole show. And I think that the whole appearance of us just makes it even more visceral and terrifying to watch in a way.
No, absolutely. And I like that you guys went for a different approach, because how many times are people going to wear corpse paint and beat that dead horse when you guys have got the plague masks? It's just a nice unique approach. But when I saw you guys, I think it was Bloodstock, I can't remember what year now, but you were playing the Surfy tent, and that was a really good show. But that immediately caught my eye with the plague mask. I was like, this is so awesome. So yeah, it's nice to see people do a different approach in black metal with the costumes that they wear and how they present themselves.
Well, with that show was the first time that we aired the full outfits that we are wearing now.
Oh wow.
Because we realised that if we're going to be on the Sophie stage of Bloodstock, we've really got to make an impact. And yeah, that was the first time that we started wearing these costumes on stage. So it's good to hear that it actually did make that impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. It definitely might really grabs you. One thing I kind of want to jump into the latest release, and the one thing I really do like from it is the artwork. Can you just kind of take us through some of the creative process that you went through? Who was the artist? What was the ideas going forward when you initially made the album? Stuff like that. I'm really interested to know that.
So the artwork for the new album was done by a guy called Yasin Violet, and I think where's he from? I think he's Indonesian. And basically we just approached him. We'd just seen his artwork and thought, this is fantastic. This, what do they call it? Stippled, is it? Stippling, the style of illustration. So basically we approached him and just said, look, we're writing an album about the Knights Templar and about these crusades. And we kind of just left it to him. We kind of gave him an impression of what the album was about and its themes. And we said, can you kind of portray that for us? And I said, and as a band, we are these four-robed heralds of the plague, as we, call ourselves. And he kind of just encapsulated that perfectly on the cover, because you've kind of got these four-robed characters, which could signify us on a crusade, and it's just really cool and eerie. And but we kind of just left it to him to come up with. We gave him the set ideas that we would have liked, and in a way, as a typical illustrator, he kind of ignored all of them and just kind of did what he wanted to do. But as soon as we saw it, we were just like, actually, that really captures it perfectly. So yeah, it was pretty simple like that. But then the artwork on the inside, we kind of said to him, you know, these are the lyrics for the track. We want it to capture that. So Field of the Burned, he obviously did the illustration with the guy on fire. You know, the other illustrations got the Knights Templar helmet on the ground, and yeah, it just kind of portrays that theme and just carries it over into the booklet, the album as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a good segue as well to get into like the actual lyrical content and, you know, the concepts of the album. Like, could you tell us about what you drew inspiration from? Like, not even just musically, but like, were you watching anything? Were you like reading up on anything that like really inspired you to write the lyrics for this album?
I think with The Great Mortality, because we did about the Black Death and kept it within medieval times, it's a subject that I'm actually quite fascinated by. And I just felt that I wanted to keep it rooted in that medieval period. Because if you look at the history of it, there's some horrible shit that went down in that time. Like, it's a brutal period, and it just lends itself perfectly for black metal. And actually, a lot of stuff that happened is so horrific that, you know, we should be made more aware of it. So the new album is about the Knights Templar, who are actually a military order sanctioned by the church. And every song on the album is about how vile humanity, the church, and Christianity really is, and how they just tried to indoctrinate anybody that wasn't Christian into their way of thinking by any means necessary, whether it was, you know, they'd simply put them to the sword and kill them off, or force them into Christianity and just ransack their lands and pillage their villages and God knows what. You know, they were just awful people. And yeah, so I just kind of, you know, did like researching books and looking online, and just kind of drew inspiration from that, and just looked at like the worst sort of historical events that happened during that time, and just put that into the album. There's so much
really interesting.
There's so much that you can explore that you can't really cover it all in 8 tracks, you know. But
yeah,
hopefully somebody will listen to that and go away and go, well, I never really knew much about the Knights Templar. And look into how horrific they really were, you know. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time.
No, for sure. And it's as well, like, you know, when you grow up, and especially in the UK, you know, they teach you about certain subjects, but there's so much of like British history that they leave out that like, you're like, oh, this is absolutely insane that this happened. And it's also crazy that this isn't covered in most of like your school lessons or anything, because especially from coming from like a Catholic school as well. I mean, obviously I grew out of that, but, you know, they definitely leave out and sugarcoat a lot of things in it, don't they?
Yeah, you can kind of see why, because of the stuff that happened. You know, they want to keep Christianity in a good light, so they don't want to educate us on that. But yeah, it's all out there to find out. You know, they massacred a lot of people in the name of Christianity, and it's just horrific.
No, absolutely,
definitely. One thing as well I want to touch on is the main thing that kind of jumps out to me when listening to your music is like your high vocals. Like, they're like such a like unique sort of vocal style. What would you say is your biggest vocal influence, as well as like how you feel you've developed as a vocalist over the years?
So I've definitely developed a hell of a lot over the years. I listened back to previous bands, and you can really hear that my vocals are completely and utterly changed for the better. I think I finally found my voice, and I found how to work with my voice and to project my vocals. My main influence, actually, when I first heard was Johnny Morrow of Iron Monkey. As soon as I heard his vocals on the track Think Dial, it just blew my mind. Like, it was just so hateful and venomous and just vile. Like, it was, I'd never heard anything like it before. You know, it was just, his screams were just inhuman, and I just wanted to kind of capture that. You know, I wanted to, you know, when I was younger, I was like, I want to try and be Johnny Morrow. I want to try and get that voice, but unfortunately nobody sounds like Johnny Morrow, and no one ever will sound like Johnny Morrow. And you know, and that inspired me. And then Jeff Walker as well from Carcass, it kind of, that he also inspired me to just give it a go. You know, and when you first start it, you just sound shocking and it just blows your voice, and you know, you just really struggle. But you know, over the years, over so many shows, you just kind of get used to it. And I've noticed as I've got older, actually, my shrieks have got more and more higher, and the sustainability of keeping them shrieks as well has improved so much. And I did singing lessons and stuff to kind of help warm my voice up and to sustain that voice during the shows and stuff. So, which really helped, because that helped me learn how to project my voice.
Yeah.
And yeah, as simple as that, really. And I think, you know, singing about what we sing about helps as well, because you get that hate and venom in your voice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just shriek away, and it's good.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, because I remember when I first started doing vocals, it was like such a difficult thing to like sort of think about. Like, you've really got to put yourself in a weird mindset to be able to do them. Like, honestly, like, I normally do quite a lot of highs in my music as well. And when I heard your highs, I was like, this guy shits all over my highs. So yeah, they're incredible, man.
Thank you. You know, it will come. It's just, you just got to keep doing them. And yeah, like I say, just it's about, what I found that's helped me a lot is actually learning to sing from the gut and not actually from the throat. And I think that was a mistake in the early years. Hence why you'd blow your voice out so much, because you're singing from your throat all the time and trying to project and push from there. But yeah, sing from the stomach and you can shriek all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think of black metal, I think it almost like divides into two categories.
Yeah,
You've got like the atmospheric and the headbang worthy, but I feel like Infernal Sea has like a healthy balance of both. What would you say is the approach to it? Do you think it just comes naturally, or was it like we want to kind of be these birth titan sides of black metal?
It definitely comes naturally. We all came from different backgrounds, so you know, some of us were in punk bands, some of us in hardcore bands, death metal bands, etc. So there's that mix of influences in the music, but it's just what naturally comes. We've always said that first and foremost, we're actually a rock and roll band that plays black metal, and we've always wanted to inject that sort of rock and roll into the music, because we all grew up listening to like the new wave of British heavy metal and stuff like that. So you know, we're big into them sort of bands. But yeah, it's just natural. You know, we don't specifically say, right, this is what we want to do. You know, and when we're writing songs, we were like, okay, we want to throw in a black and roll riff into here, you know, just to kind of break it up. But yeah, it's just whatever comes. Our guitarist is really good. I mean, we call him the riff master general, so he just can write. He can just write frosty riffs for days, and yeah, it's just whatever naturally comes from us, and we just meld it into the Infernal Sea, basically.
Now that you've said that about, you know, some people being into punk and, you know, being into British heavy metal, like, I do see that now in some of like the riffs and the patterns in there. It's not all traditional black metal. There is some other influences put in there, but I think it makes it more dynamic, in my opinion. So I do appreciate that.
Definitely, and it's about that. We didn't want to be, you know, a blasting black metal band that was just, you know, 3 minutes of blasts and no variety. We wanted to kind of change it up, and we like them rock riffs where it gets the crowd headbanging, you know, because it's memorable. And, you know, our guitarist writes really memorable riffs that get stuck in your head for days. And that's the sign of good songwriting. You know, we want people to remember us. We don't want people to be like, yeah, you know, we saw this band, they look cool, but you don't remember any of the riffs, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of perfected that with the, you know, the sort of songwriting. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. But also, like, black metal's a good template for a lot of things. Like, it goes well. Like, it's like, you know, putting salt on things. Like, black metal as salt goes well on so many things. Like, can go with British heavy metal, can go with rock and roll. So, like, when you implement these certain elements, it does flow well.
Definitely, it's a genre that you can literally do anything with, and it can work. You know, look at Darkthrone, for example. You know, they've gone from death metal to black metal to cross punk to sort of stonery doom, you know, and they mix everything in and it works. You know, it's Darkthrone. It still sounds black metal. It just goes to show that you can pretty much, try anything. And I don't think trying to think of anything that they've injected into black metal that hasn't worked. I don't think it really has.
No, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's because as like a genre, the baseline level is so flat, sort of like flat line, that you can mold it into any sort of shape you want. Like you can put it into literally everything.
Definitely.
It's such a malleable genre.
It is, and it's about the atmosphere. As long as it captures that atmosphere of black metal, then it'll pretty much work with anything, whether it's, you know, crusty punk or got that old school new wave vibe about it. It is through and through just about the atmosphere at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. One thing that I picked up on earlier, obviously you've mentioned that this latest album is about the Crusade, and you've mentioned previous albums have been about the Black Death. Is like historical events always been like a big influence on you? Like, is it something you've always been naturally drawn to?
Definitely. I just find it really interesting to sing about historical events and how humanity hasn't really learned from anything in the past, that we keep actually making the same mistakes. And yeah, you know, as we progress, things do slightly become better, but then in other cases they become worse. You know, and then you look back at history 500 years ago or whenever and go, actually, we did this before. Why are we repeating this? How is this happening again? And I just find that really interesting, the comparisons and stuff. And like I say, like, they were just brutal times back then. There's so many, you know, horrible things to sing about. It's just interesting. You know, we didn't want to go down the war front, you know, sort of like the war path, because everybody's doing, you know, lots of bands do the war themed black metal, don't they? So and we're not singing about heritage and stuff. We're just singing about the, you know, the vile nature of humanity, and history is rife with it. So you can literally go at any point in history and pick out something horrible that we have done as a species, really.
I wonder if, like, you know, in 100 years from now, there'll be like bands singing about the COVID period, like, oh, they were dark times, like, you know, reading about in history books. Like, does it make you think then how people reflect on this time as well?
Definitely. Well, you know, a lot of you know, a lot of bad stuff happened during COVID. You know, not just necessarily the pandemic, but everything else that's been going on. It's like, yeah, they may look back at that and see all the revolts that have been happening, and, you know, all the corruption that's been going on within the governments and stuff. Like, yeah, who knows what we're going to think in 100 years' time? It is a strange time, isn't it? Who would have thought we'd ever be living through a pandemic? You know, like say, you know about Spanish flu and you know about the Black Death, but you never think that it's going to happen. And here we are 100 years later, and yeah, it's happened again. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and what's crazy is. Yeah, well, what's crazy is the level of documentation there is about this history now as well. Like, you think about it, like, when you read a history book, most of it's like, we think it kind of happened like this based on these letters sent to so-and-so, but we really don't know for sure, but this is just a wild guess. Now, like, it's just going to be completely mapped out, like, this is exactly what happened, and it's just a crazy thought.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it is mad, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
You know, like, we're just lucky that science and, you know, medical has advanced so much that it's not to the extent of the Black Plague, which, you know, was just thousands and thousands and thousands of people just dying, like, every day. You know, it's like, yeah, at least we weren't wandering the streets and people were dead on the streets, and there was people with carts wheeling off the dead, you know. And thankfully we advanced enough to kind of prevent some of that. Obviously there was still quite a high death toll, but yeah, it could have been a whole lot worse, couldn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Like, if COVID happened, like, you know, 100 years ago or before that, things would have definitely been different. It's kind of scary to think about the alternative dystopia of what it could have been.
Yeah, well, we probably wouldn't be talking. At least one of us probably would have been.
Yeah, that's so true. So obviously going to black metal, it's arguably that the fans are, let's say, passionate about the genre, you know, when new bands come in. Did you ever feel like pressure coming into like a genre where, you know, there is kind of, you know, a stigma of elitism with it? Like, did you feel pressure coming in as the new band, or was it just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll do it?
No, not at all. It is a very elitist movement, but then being a metalhead, you kind of have that elitism in you anyway.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained into us, isn't it? And like I say, some of us came from hardcore and punk bands. That's full of elitist pricks. So, you know, you kind of just used to it, to be honest. But yeah, black metal felt right because it was something that we'd always really been into as well. You know, we'd been in black metal bands and death metal bands and stuff before, so we've been listening to it for quite a long time, and actually like had been involved in the scene for a while anyway, even just going to shows and stuff. So no, it wasn't daunting. We just kind of had that, fuck it, you know, people are going to like us or they're not, and simple as that. But and that's why we made such scathing music, you know, just to kind of smack them in the face and say, this is who we are. You know, if you're going to like it, great. If you're not, then fuck off. And I think that's the best attitude to have, really, because otherwise they're just going to walk all over you, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like the punk attitude to have towards it, isn't it? If you don't like it, fuck off.
Yeah, basically, fuck off and die. There you go.
Yeah. It's true there. Like, and what you said as well, it's not just black metal. Like, there is definitely a bit of elitism in like a lot of this. Yeah, even in thrash metal, in death metal, and punk, like people always have like quite passionate opinions, but you just got to say fuck it and get on with it.
Exactly. And you know, that's always been there, and it'll always be there. You know, when I was a lot younger, I used to be elitist, you know, probably more so than I am now, but like, yeah, as you're growing up, everyone would be like, you either like, you're the Metallica camp or you're the Maiden camp. You know, it's like, so you only listen to them style of bands because nothing else matters. That's it. I'm going to stick to that genre. But then actually you get to a point where you go, oh, actually there's a bigger circle of metal bands. There's even more out there, and you start realizing and discovering that, and then you kind of give up on that whole elitism stuff because there's so much to explore in the genre, and there's so many great bands out there that why just listen to thrash or death metal, like, or the demo cassettes of your favorite black metal band and nothing else? You know what I mean? Like, just fucking explore it all. It's a great genre to be a fan and follower of, isn't it?
Yeah, too right.
Yeah, I think from like a musician standpoint, it improves your music when you have a variety of different sounds that you listen to. Definitely. Because like I've met bands where it's like, oh no, I only listen to like the genre I make my music in, and it kind of shows sometimes when in their music, because you're like, oh yeah, standard little death metal fill there, standard little death metal guitar there, yep, and it's kind of almost predictable. Whereas like I think when you listen to a lot more things, you end up going, I heard this fill in like this hardcore song, I think might actually fit really nicely here if we did something similar, and it widens the scope of your music.
Definitely, and you have to broaden your horizons. There's no point in just listening to the same stuff. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong to say that you can listen to hip hop, you can listen to rap, you can listen to pop, you can listen to punk, listen to whatever the fuck you want. It's all music at the end of the day. If you enjoy it, that's all that matters. But you can take influences from that. You know, with us, we take that, like, we try to structure our songs in that sort of like in the way that they write pop songs and rock songs, you know, where it's like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, because that works. It's a formula that works really well, and it goes to show, because these bands sell a lot of records. You know, look at AC/DC, have released the same record for the past 40 years, but it works. You know what I mean? It is just about taking those influences from everywhere else and pulling it into your music, because otherwise that's how the genres become stale and boring. You know, like once you've heard so many tech death metal riffs, you're just going to keep rehashing them. It's time to inject something new into it, you know. And that probably goes to show how a lot of the new death metal bands, for example, have gone into that old school 90s entombed feel about it.
Oh yeah,
they just seem to be, you know, maybe people are just a bit bored of all the tech death stuff that's been going on for a while, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have found that like bands like Gatecreeper, they're just coming like kind of out the gate, and like it's one of those things where it's like I hear so much entombed from them, and it's like it's kind of refreshing to hear, because I've literally like feel like I've kind of got from like death metal as a genre recently was just tech death. Let's make the riffs as advanced as humanly possible. Yeah. And like Gatecreeper come out and like, we basically are just doing, we listen to Left Damn Path, we like the guitar tone, we're basically doing Left Damn Path each release, yeah, and we're simplifying it, and it's like, it works so well because it's so good to listen to.
Yeah. And it worked well then, you know, there's a reason why it worked so well. It's the same with us, you know, we were heavily influenced by the second wave of black metal. We're not ashamed to say that, you know, but it was a great time for black metal, and it was so simple, and, you know, so we kind of yeah, bring them influences into us, and you can kind of hear that, and that's what makes it refreshing, because like you say, everybody goes down a certain route, and then all the bands kind of all sound similar after a while, don't they? And then it takes somebody else to come in and just break that, and then everyone starts to sound like that, and then that breaks and goes, it's that perpetual
for sure.
cycle.
Well, also as well, like, in terms of black metal, it's a shame that there's so many people that will only listen to the 90s, wave of black metal, because there's so much interest in black metal bands coming out now, like you guys, there's Winterfellith, there's also Imperial Triumphant, who are making like black metal jazz. Like, people just need to broaden their horizons to see like everything that's going on, because there's so much.
There's Full of Hell as well. There's Full of Hell. Like, I think Full of Hell at the minute, oh my God, they make incredible fucking music. Like, it's interesting that they came from a hardcore background and then just suddenly switched to black metal, and it's like they're doing it pretty well. Like, they do it in a really, I think, very unique way. And it's like there's so many bands that recently coming out that are insane, but people are like, no, I like to listen to the same 4 demo tapes every day.
So true. But there's so many pockets of it. Like, the American black metal scene is completely different to anything in the world. The Norwegian scene is obviously the kings of it all, but then Australia's got a good black metal scene. The UK's got an incredible black metal scene. Like, but they're all different, if you notice. Like, the American bands don't really sound like the British bands. The British bands don't really sound like the American bands, etc.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting and diverse at the moment. And like you say, there's so many good new bands coming out. It's just as a genre, it's pretty consistent. There'll be, if you've got 10 new releases, you're looking at probably 6 or 7 of them that are going to be fucking bangers, and you're like, actually, this is great. It's just a really good, healthy genre at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. On sort of like the subject of black metal, like, I think this would be a really good segue into it, is how do you feel like black metal has changed from like the early 90s to now? Like, what would you say is the key changes that you feel like has come across into the genre and improved it?
The accessibility of it all, but obviously that goes against everything that they said in the first and second waves. It was supposed to be about defiance, because they were sick of death metal, weren't they? And they wanted to make it rawer, and they were sick of all the polished recordings and stuff. And it wasn't, I suppose it wasn't really meant to be for the masses. That's obviously completely changed, because now it's a massive global moneymaker for a lot of bands. That most of the second wave, like Emperor and stuff like that, are just, they're huge, aren't they? Larger than life bands. So I think the accessibility of it all is obviously a major positive. But yeah, it's a difficult one. It's certainly improved, because it just injects so many influences into it now. And like you say, it's not many bands really kind of follow that second wave as such, do they? A lot of them are quite unique now, like I say, injecting their own influences. But yeah, I think it's just mainly the fact that it's more mainstream now is potentially a good thing, and could be a bad thing. But yeah, I don't see it as a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't think like bands are afraid to like go into like the avant-garde style of black metal as well. I think now people are happy to just take it in any direction that they want, and they're not really, like you said with you guys, not afraid of the criticism they'll receive. They'll say, fuck it, let's roll with it, and if we want to put some jazz in there, we'll put some jazz in there, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it gives you more freedom. I mean, there were bands back then doing the avant-garde stuff with Victorus, ridiculously avant-garde, but yeah, it is just that freedom now to like literally do whatever you want. Like you say, with Imperial Triumphant doing their jazzy thing, which is pretty bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's cool, it's completely different, and yeah, it's refreshing, and I think the genre just keeps reinventing itself. When it feels like it does get stale, then somebody else comes along and completely changes things up. And then other bands like Mork, for example, who hark back to the old days, kind of bring another refreshing vibe to it again, because you're kind of like, oh, this is cool. This sounds like the old school, and yeah, it's a strange one, really.
No, I completely agree. So like every band has their pre-stage rituals, like, what are you guys doing before stage? What's Infernal Sea's pre-stage ritual? Are you sacrificing some goats? You're doing some Jaeger bombs? Like, what's going on?
Of course, we always worship Satan, sacrifice a few goats, drink some blood. It's just
important.
The standard shit. Yeah, no, pretty much our pre-gig rituals is us just getting ready for ages.
Oh yeah, all the costumes.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's it.
How long does it actually take to like get all the costume on before stage?
It's not that bad actually, because it's just robes and masks. It's probably 10 minutes or so. But it's just getting everything else set up and ready. It's always a bit of a ball ache, but here's what it is, isn't it?
For sure, for sure.
We all know you guys love black metal, but is there any other genres that you tend to listen to and draw for inspiration from, or what really just gets played when you're in the van on tour?
Any guilty pleasures?
Oh, they're not guilty pleasures. Like, I'm not guilty of most of the stuff we listen to, but yeah, we literally listen to everything and anything, but it's mainly a lot of like Maidens and a lot of thrash stuff, and like I say, the old new wave of British heavy metal, lots of hip hop. Depends. If we just played a show, we tend to avoid too much death metal or anything extreme, and then we just whack on all the old hip hop. So a bit of Dre, bit of Cube, Big, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we literally listen to everything. It just depends on the mood. On the way to the show, we can just listen to like Deicide and shit like that, and then on the way back, tame it down, stick on a bit of Madonna and Michael Jackson, and have done with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's always like that for me, to be honest. Like when I'm on the way to something, like I'm on the way to a gig, I'll always have like the heaviest stuff on. When I get back and I'm really tired at the end of the night, it's all the guilty pleasure stuff at the end.
You just need it. Just when you've just blasted your ears with loud music, you kind of need something to calm you down a bit, don't you? So just stick on your synthwave playlist or your 80s pop playlist or whatever, and your punk playlist, and it keeps you happy.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Do you ever find like you only listen to like I find, for me personally, I only listen to black metal when I'm not writing with my band, or like if I only listen to metal in general if I'm not writing with the band. Like if I am writing, I tend to like listen to other stuff. Like I don't really listen to metal a lot, and I think it's from writing it. Do you ever like feel the same? Do you ever like when you are writing, you're like, I've just had enough of metal for today, I'm just gonna stick some metal on? Like
personally, no. Because I listen to music every day. It's always been a big part of my life, and I listen to metal every day. But not just metal. I will listen to other stuff throughout the day. But yeah, when I'm writing, no, because I'm obviously the vocalist and I just write the lyrics and stuff. I don't subconsciously take all of that in. Whereas it can be quite problematic for, say, the guitarists, because they're absorbing that music, and then when you play a riff, you could be like, oh, hang on a minute, I just played this and that's so-and-so, because that's what they've been listening to. So I do find that our guitarists and that don't really listen to too much when they're writing, and they actually listen to other stuff, because then it allows them to focus a bit more on what they're writing, and then you don't accidentally, inadvertently, take somebody else's riff because that's what you've been listening to for a whole week, and then go, oh shit, that's so-and-so's, no, can't use that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but personally, no, I just listen to everything all day, every day.
That's all good. So yeah, we did a deep dive into your socials. So I have to ask, you post a lot of pictures with birds. Like, do you work with birds, or you just like, is that like a passing hobby for you?
Birds?
Yeah.
Did you get the right profile?
I typed in your name. I might have been your profile. Did I get the wrong profile?
You might have done. I don't really post pictures of birds. I do like birds, though. Yeah, they're cool.
That's so fucking funny. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I assume Brad probably got the wrong one there.
I mean, there's not many people with my name. I don't recall posting pictures of birds. Depends what birds you mean.
Yeah, I swear I got your profile. It was like you said that you're the vocalist of Infernal Sea. Unless I must have switched profiles by accident, but unless you've got like a twin brother that's also into birds and black metal.
Well, bird watching. I used to go bird watching as a kid, but yeah, must have someone emulating me. That's funny.
Oh, yeah, scrap that one.
Yeah, maybe I'm taking pictures of the birds so I can have them for the pre-ritual sacrifice.
Yeah, that was a pre-ritual.
Right.
Bite off that swan's head.
On like sort of like, because we touched upon on the subject of like the black metal fan base. The one thing I would say that separates the black metal fan base from most fan bases in metal or in music in general is just the level of how once they're kind of into it and they're really into it, they'll never give anything else a chance in a way. And like, no, this is me. What do you think makes black metal fans so diehard about the genre? Like, what do you think it is about the genre that makes people like, this is it, this is all I need now?
It's definitely the intensity of the genre, isn't it? And it's one of the extremist forms of music, I suppose, and that attracts a certain type of person. It's not an accessible form of music, is it? It's you either like black metal or don't. And to be honest, it took me a little while when I first heard some of the bands. I was a bit like, no, I'm not into this. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I'd revisit some of them albums and go, actually, this is really cool. And then you kind of clicked with it. And it takes certain bands to make you click with it. And I think because of the intensity and the extremity of the genre, it just attracts a completely and utterly different crowd. And I think that's what they're drawn to. Because it is music is about escapism, isn't it? And maybe a lot of people feel more at home with the crowd, with the black metal crowd. They feel like they're more accepted amongst that crowd. A lot of outcasts, I guess, within the metal genre as a whole, really, isn't it? You look at 20, 30 years ago, we were kind of outcast by society and seen as the long-haired grebos that nobody really liked. But now it's become quite a popular genre in a way. It's become a lot more accepted, and it's just about that community, isn't it? And I think that's what it is. They just feel more accepted within that genre.
I think as well, like when I think about black metal, as well as it being intense, it's also sometimes a bit of a therapeutic experience. Listen to black metal, I can often find myself listening to quite a few bands that I find almost relaxing. It's not every band, of course, but like there is quite a few that I can just stick on and just have it on in the background or just relax to it. So I could definitely be more down to listen to black metal most of the time than I would for death metal because of the exact reasons what I said. So yeah, but I suppose that's a point of why black metal might be so accessible to people, that when they get into it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can listen to stuff and can even fall asleep to some black metal records because it's relaxing. Is that just because you like them sounds, so you can feel more relaxed to it? But if you put something on that jars you, it's just, you're not going to be able to relax to it, are you? You put on something that you just think, like, for me, I don't like jazz. It drives me mad. So if someone was to put jazz,
I'm in the same boat.
It just makes me angry. Like I can't deal with it. And weirdly enough, like jazz, classical, just pisses me off. And everyone's like, but it's nice. It's it's like, no, it's not. Like, just fuck it off the stereo. Like, I tried to get into jazz, and I just threw the fucking CD out the window because it just drove me mad. I was like, it just irritates me, But again, some people can absolutely love it,
It's quite interesting actually, like the polarizing opinion, because I guess somewhere that people might look at jazz and classical and the way some people might look at death metal is like they're both sort of heavy in their own ways. Like jazz has like no sort of structure. It is kind of all over the place how people might see, I don't know, tech death or something. So like I wonder if they have the same opinion of that as like people do with like classical.
Maybe. I mean, people that listen to classical and jazz probably won't ever listen to any metal bands, will they?
No.
Even though they probably say they listen to any band. But as soon as you give them a band like that, they'll be like, "Oh no, I don't like this."
Yeah.
At least that's
I remember when.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember when Brad tried taking me to like a jazz bar. What do you remember this, Brad? When you're like, "Oh, I found like this speakeasy place in Leeds. Do you want to come to it? They play live jazz." And I was like, "I'd rather stick pins in my bollocks than go there."
It would be torture, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was like, I really don't like jazz. And Brad was like, "How do you not like jazz?" I'm like, Simple. It's just fucking noise. I'm sorry. It's just fucking noise. It's just some guy playing the trumpet. The drumming's all right. I can appreciate the drumming, right? But it's just all sorts of shit just thrown at me. I just don't like it. It's just not nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a love or hate thing.
Yeah, it's a, you connect to it or you don't. Like I say, I can appreciate the musicianship in it, but it's just not for me. It just makes me want to smash things.
No, that's fair enough.
It like aggravates me. Like there's no pattern. There's just no pattern. It's like, all right, did you actually like spend ages writing this, or did you just go fuck it and then just did it and then like, there we go, avant-garde guys. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Who knows? Maybe they just got very high and just made something.
yeah, exactly.
I want to ask as well. So obviously not birds, but do you have any hobbies and interests outside of music that like people might not know about you?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to disclose them.
It's okay.
So mainly just music, but yeah, I do have other hobbies, but it will ruin the mystique, so I'm not going to say them.
No, that's okay. You have sparked my interest. I'm very intrigued to know what they are, but that's fine. Don't have to mention them.
I'll tell you when we finish.
Yeah, do it.
No worries. One thing as well, like, what would you say is like the funniest thing that's happened on tour for you guys? Do you tend to have like quite a few funny moments?
Yeah, we do. I mean, amongst ourselves, because obviously we've been mates for so long. So as any band together, you just turn into a bunch of idiots, don't you? But yeah, there's plenty of fun stories. But we've been quite fortunate, really, in a lot of the places and shows we've played. That there hasn't really been anything, ridiculously funny that we can report. As any band, you've obviously had all these moments where you just think, "Oh, fucking hell!" But yeah, nothing really silly as such, not that I can think of off the top of my head. No, quite boring in that sense.
That's all good. That's all good. So we are getting to sort of the end point of the interview now. How we like to end it is, what advice would you give to younger self starting out in the band, and what advice would you give to like new bands starting out? Like, what would your key advice be?
Just go for it. Just do, write the music you want to write. Practice. That's the key. A lot of bands rush into it. They'll get together, have probably 4 or 5 songs, and then want to play, and they've only been together for like 3 months. Literally, get them songs down, practice as hard as you can, get them as tight as fuck, because then people are going to notice you. If you're sloppy as hell, then no one, you're just going to be laughed at, aren't you? So, yeah, just practice and just go for it, and just be yourselves, and just write what you want to write. And that's the only advice you can give. And yeah, any starting band, you're going to be shit when you start, but just stick with it, and you'll get better. It's just, that's how it works. We all started in bands that you look back at and think, Jesus Christ, that is awful. But you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? And it's just about being passionate and doing it.
For sure. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I loved your new album, so I definitely want to get it on vinyl at some point. And I'm sure I'll see you guys on a tour again in the UK, or playing Damnation, playing Bloodstock. But I'll definitely be seeing you guys when you come back. Definitely.
We've got plans to play shows in 2022, and actually we're playing with Batushka in November this year. So that's our first show for this year. But yeah, we'll be. And then we're doing the Incineration Fest actually next year with Emperor in London. So yeah, you'll see us on some shows next year for sure.
I really want to go to Incineration Festival, but it's in London. It's so far from us. I would like to go, but I don't think I'll be going. But that tour you mentioned,
we've had a year of no gigs. I don't want to hear the shit of, oh, it's too far away. We're fucking going either way.
No matter what it takes.
I don't care. If it's in London, I'm getting the train and a hotel. If it's in Leeds, I'm going to walk right to the venue. It's been a year. We've got to have a trip down.
I'll take every chances now.
And it's Emperor, so of course, just jump on a train. It's not that far. It's only like
Dark Funeral as well. Oh yeah, that looks really good. But I think that tour that you mentioned with Batushka and is it Belphegor that they're playing with as well? Because I was thinking about going to that. So probably see you guys at that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that one would be sick. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Because I've never seen Belphegor either, so
they're good.
Catch them. Yeah, I'd like to see them. So
really good. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you soon.